Hi everyone, my name is Julian Palmer, and this is The Discarded Image, a new online video series where I analyse and deconstruct well-known pieces of cinema. In this episode, I will be looking at the beach scene from Steven Spielberg's Jaws. It was only the director's second theatrical release, yet he was already displaying himself to be a visionary craftsman. Hitchcock apparently once said, "Young Spielberg is the first one of us who doesn't see the proscenium arch." He has such a nimble way of orchestrating the camera. He has the structural precision of Hitchcock, with an added gift for making the images breathe more organically. Like Hitchcock, he rigorously storyboards his shots, but unlike Hitch, will improvise on top of it during shooting. He just intuitively knows how to dramatise an image, whilst also having the freedom to be playful. 40 years later, with more recent films like Tintin for example, prove that there's still not really anyone that can match his seemingly effortless visual invention. The beach scene from Jaws is Spielberg at his most Hitchcockian. It begins with a multifaceted 40-second setup that subtly introduces all of the sequence's major elements. The shot starts moving left, with what one can only describe as a portly woman heading in for a swim. It's like a comical red herring, as she should be the beachgoer who is most appetizing to the shark. The shot also introduces the boy playing fetch with the dog, which is crucial later. Also notice the colour coding of the boy's shirt. This colour is used throughout the sequence in a very deliberate way. It's often difficult to describe or analyse what the use of a colour means. You just get an intuitive sense of why it's being used. Hitchcock, for example, starts with a blank canvas and will then strategically add colour for dramatic effect. I would also recommend checking out the 60s work of Jean-Luc Godard, a bold influence on many of the new Hollywood directors of the 70s era, and a master of painterly colour design. As the woman goes into the water, the boy throws the stick, and with precision timing, the dog passes in between the woman and a younger boy. The camera changes direction, which is a jarring reversal, and forces emphasis on the young boy. It's as though Spielberg is telling us, this is what you really should be focusing on. The colour coding here on the boy's shorts is also very deliberate. It's all part of a subconscious suspense initiation, and a colour like red has more obvious connotations.
Alex, Kintner, they're beginning to prune.
Just let me go out a little longer.
Just 10 more minutes.
Thanks.
The camera continues to move with the boy, only Spielberg has him larger in the frame. This further heightens the emphasis on him, until he eventually grows smaller in the frame, revealing Chief Brody. Brody is completely unaware of the boy passing by. This clearly states that the information we just witnessed was designed purely for the viewer. The viewer has been primed for the danger, yet our lead protagonist is completely blindsided. And therein lies the initial tension in the sequence, between what the audience know and what Brody knows.
4 people are sitting around a table, talking about baseball, whatever you like. 5 minutes of it, very dull. Suddenly, a bomb goes off, blows the people to smithereens. What do the audience have? 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table and will go off in 5 minutes. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different.
The suspense tactics here are somewhat more nuanced. The viewer knows that something bad is going to happen. It's a question of who. In this single setup, Spielberg has given you the options, the potential victims, and he has emphasised who the victim will be. So the main question on the audience's mind is this: will Spielberg go ahead and kill an innocent child? If you look at Jurassic Park, a film made almost 20 years later, in an almost mirror sequence, Spielberg once again uses children as the focal point of danger. Yet in that film, he goes to great lengths to spare the audience a similar tragedy.
No, Tim. Good boy. Good boy.
Although I've been guilty of, in the picture, sabotage of making this error, but I've never made it since. The bomb must never go off.
Like Hitchcock in Sabotage, Spielberg has evolved his thinking on this. As a father himself now, he is unable to go through with the clinical brutality of his younger self.
Because I was younger, I was more courageous, or I was more stupid. I'm not sure which. So when I think of Jaws, I think about courage and stupidity. And I think of both of those things existing underwater.
Back to Brody, whose perspective we will now be forced to inhabit. This is all set up with his final shot position. He has the largest position within the frame of the entire shot. We are on his side. Though, like wheelchair-bound James Stewart in Rear Window, he will be helpless to stop what unfolds in front of him. The Rear Window lineage here is meaningful. Not only is Spielberg evolving Hitchcock's techniques, but he is also evolving his themes. In Rear Window, James Stewart is physically paralysed, whereas with Chief Brody, it's more psychological.
Martin, you gonna shut down the beaches on your own authority?
Well, what other authority do I need?
Technically, you need a civic ordinance or a resolution by a board of selectmen.
That's just going by the book. We're really a little anxious that you're rushing into something serious here. It's your first summer, you know.
What does that mean?
I'm only trying to say that Amity is a summer town. We need summer dollars.
He has been crippled by the powers that be, the ruthless moneymakers that are willing to put innocent lives in danger for financial reward. At the end of the day, the shareholders want a packed beach. Brody wants an empty one. Yet he is helpless to go against the powerful. But like many a working stiff, he has to take the brunt of the moral responsibility. As a police officer, he has to protect the beachgoers. It's an impossible situation. He has to ignore his gut feeling. Spielberg contrasts the first shot with a series of quick cuts, which are all the more effective because of the lengthy setup that preceded. And the shots are in the general direction Brody is looking, so they represent his point of view. It's a flurry of information that signifies the impossibility of Brody's position. There's no way he can keep an eye on all of the potential victims around him.
John, the kind of control you're attempting is, it's not possible. Listen, if there's one thing the history of evolution has taught us, it's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories, and it crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, no, there it is. There it is.
This is followed by a number of shots of Brody watching that get increasingly closer. Spielberg also uses wipes from extras walking past to master cuts. This is a way to build energy and tension in the frame, as well as being another method to again suggest the mass of people moving around the beach and entering the sea in all directions.
Now, today? We'll make it fast. Yeah, well, don't bother until come right back.
We cut back to the initial setup a second time, and in general the sequence will continue in this Rear Window inspired point of view reaction system that has been laid out. Though Spielberg does again evolve this practice with a number of his compositional choices. First this shot, which feels like a new interpretation of the generic over-the-shoulder shot you see in movies everywhere. The shoulder blocks the camera, creating more tension by obstructing Brody's view. The next image is a split diopter shot. It's a split screen effect, where you can simultaneously have a foreground and background image in focus. You can notice the blur on the character's hair. It was used by a number of American filmmakers of the 70s, with Brian De Palma using it most frequently. Though you can also see it much further back in a film like Citizen Kane. Here it juxtaposes the distracting, in-your-face irritation of Brody's companion, whilst his attention is really attempting to focus on the girl's hysterics in the sea, which just turn out to be another false alarm. It's all part of this tension relief strategy that is such a staple of suspense filmmaking. And once again we go back to the initial setup. This shot will be getting stale by now if added elements were not put into play. This time it's his wife that is trying to take his attention away. Though most effective is the use of all the kids moving towards the sea in the background. It's not the main focus of the shot, but such a wealth of movement cannot fail to be registered by the viewer. And doing it this way, instead of cutaways for example, keeps the shot on Brody, and again dramatises his inability to control the environment.
It's cold. We know all about you, Chief. You don't go in the water at all, do you?
Some bad hat, Harry.
Chief Brody, you are uptight. Yes. Come on. That's it.
This part of the sequence climaxes, with 6 rapidly cut together close-ups of the kids shark baiting splashing. It's a visceral effect, and the luminous natural lighting feels searingly idyllic. It's as though Spielberg is highlighting the childlike innocence that is seconds away from witnessing the harsh reality of nature. After these cuts, the next beat is a sure sign that trouble is on the horizon.
Hip it! Hip it! Hip it! Hip it! Come on, hip it! Hip it!
The suspense comes to an end, with the longest running shot since the opening one. This provides both a circular structural unity, but it also heightens and climaxes the tension, as the viewer is unable to look away. They are forced to stay with the perspective of the shark, relentlessly moving closer to its prey. There's literally no way out. The attack is first shown from afar. This distance highlights Brody's ineffectual ability to prevent the tragedy, and also serves to underline the clinical act of nature. Spielberg then cuts to a shot that ends like an abstract combination of water, sea, and blood, human. And so enters the famous vertigo distortion effect shot, which is a dolly and zoom combo. The world around Brody crumbles. The air is sucked out. His fears have been realised. In Vertigo, the effect was nauseating and related to Scotty's distorted viewpoint. But here, it feels like being thrusted into reality. Brody's viewpoint is no longer clouded. He finally sees, clear as day, what he always should have.
It's been proven by history. All mankind makes mistakes. It's our job to try to protect you from making the dangerous ones if we can.
The composition is centrally framed. It was his responsibility. He should have demanded the beach be closed down. He will carry the burden and reap the consequences. And then the tension dissipates. We cut to mostly objective wide shots that just let the information unfold without any forceful direction. It's too late. The damage has been done. The boy is gone. The pleasure-seeking beach dwellers are implicit in this tragedy. They are determined to command the natural environment for their own leisure. After all, the villainous moneymakers need customers. You can't have one without the other. If the population at large were less caught up with the frivolity of their own lives, maybe tragedies of this scale and larger could be avoided. I think the reason why Spielberg is so popular with audiences is because he is so adept at putting the viewer through the ringer. He doesn't just objectively play out a scene, he engages the viewer directly and makes them experience the same emotions as his characters. Because throughout this sequence, we are as helpless as Brody to stop what is happening before our eyes.